Wish TV. All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage, exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders, expert analysis on critical legislation. From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
I'm Garrett Bergquist, government reporter for Wish TV and the producer of All Indiana Politics. The airstrikes on Iran are by far the largest combat operation the United States has ever undertaken against that country. Democratic lawmakers in particular have accused the Trump administration of offering shifting explanations for why President Trump authorized Operation Epic Fury. The All Indiana Politics team talked to two members of our congressional delegation, Republican Senator Todd Young and Democratic Congressman Carson. They serve on the Senate and House Intelligence Committees respectively and have received briefings on the operation. Our Phil Sanchez talked to Senator Young. He began by asking Senator Young about news that had just broken that President Trump had fired Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.
Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be with you, Phil.
Before we get rolling on everything that has taken place in Iran, I want to get your reaction on the new information that we got about Kristi Noem a little while ago.
So Secretary Noem has through the decision of the president, she's being placed in a different position. I don't really have much information about why that is. Maybe the president thinks she's particularly well situated to serve him faithfully and successfully in another role. Maybe it's because he thinks that Senator Mullen, soon to be Secretary Mullen, I expect, can do an excellent job. I believe in Senator Mullen. I know he understands this issue set of Homeland Security. He has a great work ethic, but most importantly, he has the trust and confidence of the President of the United States, which is the most important attribute for this role during a dangerous time.
Okay, we'll get moving on to what's happening overseas now in the Middle East. Your biggest takeaway from the administration briefing with Iran?
You know, my biggest takeaway is the top cabinet officials, Secretary of Defense, Director of Central Intelligence, Secretary of State, and then the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane. They're all doing their very best during this difficult wartime situation to make sure they bring the conflict to a close quickly, that they defeat this regime of the Islamic Republic, or at least neutralize their ability to develop any nuclear weapons moving forward or missiles which could harm America or our interests. I don't love how we got here. In fact, I am very troubled about how we got here, and I've been clear about that. Congress needs to do its oversight responsibilities a lot better, something I've emphasized quite a bit over the months and years I've been here. And but we're here. The president made a tough call. The American people, after the fact, now that we're in the war, have to be persuaded that this was the right decision. And I'm going to do my best to support our near-term efforts and bring this to a close quickly.
Does the Trump administration have a clear goal, in your opinion?
You know, the goals, the ones I just laid out, no nuclear weapons development and neutralize the missile capacity, those are pretty clear to me. And I would say there's all these legal questions which are interesting, but not particularly relevant when it comes to dealing with the threat at hand. Things about imminence. And whether or not there was an imminent threat. This is sort of the war powers law that's been important to me, and I think it should be very important to all Americans. But those are secondary questions, I think, now, Phil, now that we actually have Hoosier boots on the ground in the region. We have people fighting, and it's a heightened danger level for the American people in our homeland.
How concerned should the folks here in Indiana be, or even really across the country, about possible retaliation and attacks here?
Well, I think we should take it very seriously. are blessed to be in a country that is protected by the best military in the world, protected by two vast oceans. We have a lot of friends in the world, but it's a dangerous place. And I do have to say that in recent years, it's become a lot more dangerous in large measure because we had unprotected borders. There are people in this country, some of whom hail from the Islamic Republic of Iran and others who are here illegally. I have some real homeland security concerns there, so we should be praying for the best and for all those who are charged with making sure that we get the best outcome. And then with respect to our troops, of course, we all want them to be successful and come home quickly and safely. So Hoosiers should be engaged, certainly, and hope that we can end this as quickly as possible.
What about cyber attacks, Senator? Should we be concerned about that?
Well, we have seen in recent history the Iranians engage in cyber attacks, whether it's dis or misinformation, cyber theft, or to try and disable certain types of systems and attack our critical infrastructure. So on all those fronts, I feel like our Homeland Security professionals and others are focused on that problem set, but there's definitely a risk. I have to be candid.
We spoke to Israel's consul general to the Midwest the other day, our Garrett Bergquist did, and I don't want to misquote him here. So he said that it's his opinion that Israeli intelligence has come away with the conclusion that Iran was moving nuclear infrastructure underground, and that soon the only way to get them, or get to them rather, would be through ground assaults. Your thoughts on that, and is that a possibility?
Well, what the Israelis might do is a different question than what Americans might do. We're a sovereign country, though very close allies with the state of Israel. So is it conceivable that U.S. intelligence would be shared and enable such a mission? Yes. But we haven't been briefed that I can tell you about any mission like that. And, because there was no real meaningful debate and briefings on the front end of this operation, which is highly unfortunate. We're struggling to get as much information as we can, follow the news, and be reactive. So we'll do everything the American people would expect us at this moment.
Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate everything you do, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you.
That was Senator Todd Young, who serves on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Meanwhile, I talked to Congressman Andre Carson. Let's bring in Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
What an honor. Thank you.
What were your biggest takeaways from the administration's briefing on Iran?
Well, without speaking out of school, we're still looking very deeply at President Trump's launching of major military operations in Iran alongside Israel without really a declared war or explicit congressional approval. There's been no justification to Congress or to the American people explaining why this escalation was even necessary.
In that briefing, were you able to get any clarity on the Trump administration's goals?
I don't think anyone has clarity. I think this pattern of threatened action, build up forces, strike without oversight is exactly the kind of abuse of executive powers the War Powers Resolution was designed to prevent. My colleagues and I, we demand an immediate briefing from the White House. Any further military action must come from Congress at this point.
Based on what you heard in that briefing, do you anticipate any American ground forces being committed?
There's been an indication that the president may send ground forces, which concerns me. The War Powers Resolution exists precisely to prevent unilateral war decisions by the president. This vote that we will be taking is not symbolic. It is a constitutional check in line with the vision of the founding fathers. If we allow Donald Trump to wage war without debate or authorization, we effectively surrender the legislative body's most serious responsibility to the executive branch.
Israel's consul general to the Midwest told me on Tuesday that Israeli intelligence said Iran was moving nuclear infrastructure underground and that soon the only way to get to that infrastructure would be to send in ground forces. Does that match what you've been told?
Well, I think for me, it's Israel's military offensive has really intensified a decades-long conflict and really gone beyond defensive action into direct offensive combat operations. The U.S. should not automatically join offensive military campaigns without very clearly defined congressional authorization and a defined U.S. interest. So, war with Iran, it really places American troops at risk and destabilizes the region. This isn't a hypothetical, it's happening right now.
Senate Armed Services Committee Chair Roger Wicker says to expect a potential supplemental defense appropriations bill. How would you vote on that?
I'm not in favor of, I was against the supplemental. And I think what needs to happen is that, we have to really define what we're looking at. Diplomacy should have been our first line of defense against nuclear proliferation. It appeared that negotiations were proceeding and promising, but the Iran strikes have closed the door really on very serious negotiations for now. So the only sustainable way to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon is through very serious, verifiable diplomacy backed by inspections, like we had under President Obama with the JCPOA or the Iranian nuclear deal. So I think these supplementals are really window dressing a larger problem down the road.
At this point, how concerned should we be here in Indiana about potential Iranian-inspired lone wolf terrorist
Mm.
attacks?
As it relates to a local attack, I'm always concerned about an ongoing war, a never-ending war where our local assets could be jeopardized. Our stadiums could be vulnerable. Our major events could be used to make some symbolic point by extremist elements or lone wolves or even sleeper cells. So that's the fight that we're continuing to fight. I raised this point um, a week ago with the CIA and with the FBI and with Homeland Security. And so it's something that I will be engaged with the director of ODNI, Tulsi Gabbard, who I serve with, and others, because that is my paramount concern, making sure Americans are safe at home and abroad.
What about cyber attacks?
Well, cyber attacks are critically important. Iran does have cyber capabilities, perhaps not to the degree yet of China and Russia, of whom they have a very cozy relationship with, but they still have the ability to impact communities, grids, possibly our electoral system, our electric systems, in smaller communities, but still of note enough to cause enough damage that would hinder us in the very near future.
Governor Mike Braun has confirmed that there are Indiana National Guard units in the region right now. Are any of those units involved in direct combat operations, or for that matter, Indiana-connected reserve units?
At this point, no. We hope it doesn't escalate to that level. My hope is that Hoosier soldiers will be safe, those who have committed themselves to serving our country. I come from a military family, and it's never good. Families suffer while young men and women are seeking an opportunity, not just to serve their country, but to benefit themselves and their families and make their futures better. But the casualties, unfortunately, almost are always young adults, men and women who have committed to serve. We've seen it with the Vietnam War. We've seen it with all of our world wars to date. We've seen it with um, a desert storm, and hopefully we don't see it now.
I want to return to a point you made. You said that you stand with the Iranian people in their fight for freedom. Do we have a duty to intervene given the mass killing of Iranians by their government when they took to the streets earlier this year?
I think it's important to note that we want to make sure that the people of any country have a right to pick and choose their leaders. At the same time, if you have a country like Iran funding terrorist enterprises, funding terrorist organizations through Hamas or other entities, it is always a concern of the United States and our global partners and our Gulf partners to keep the region safe and keep Americans safe. I'm deeply concerned about that. Having said that, Iranians still want to have the right to have those in their government to to represent them properly and to provide a way of life that they see fit that will benefit their families, whether it's nationalizing their oil system, which was disrupted through British Petroleum or BP, or even the right to free and fair elections and the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It may not look the way we think it should look, but they certainly deserve a right to have freedoms in their country that are protected and uninterrupted by religious ideologues or outside countries who want to dictate what their way of life should look like.
Congressman Andre Carson, thank you for joining us.
What an honor. Thank you.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.